So the next question is, how do you combat compassion fatigue and burnout?
First is through my own faith, and really trying to take some steps to maintain my personal walk with the Lord. That's probably the most important thing for me. Personal worship and my own time, prayer and Bible reading. My relationship with my wife is probably the second. She really is just, my partner, and keeps me strong, keeps me going. So that's right up there. My relationship with the Lord. And then third, I try to find, I haven't been very good at it lately, but to do some of the things that I like, I enjoy running and working out. So, that's really good for my mental health as well.
Yeah.
We have a couple of horses, so spending time with the horses, that's good for me. And then I go to conferences. That's how I get my therapies. I go to an EMDR conference and we practice on each other.
For being at residency, it was actually very helpful. So I can see how that's going to be benefit in the future.
Yeah.
And even the horses alone, like I know animal therapy is a huge thing. So
Oh yeah.
I think that's great.
Just last night we have one of our horses is just a young Mustang, so she's just a long yearling. But she has such a. It's like they know you've rescued them almost. And
grateful.
Yeah.
Oh.
So anyway, I went out to feed them last night, and she put her head over the fence and laid it on my shoulder.
Oh.
And there's something you received quite a shot of oxytocin and just some healing from something like that.
Horses and dogs and just animals in general definitely.
Mm-hmm.
They have their own personalities, so
Mm-hmm.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Question. Okay, what do you think? What do you feel would be beneficial for others looking to enter the field to know?
Marriage and family therapy specifically.
Yeah, and I'm asking this because I know with reading about it in the books, to me, just practicing the sessions that we're doing now, I have a hard time not only processing and staying focused, but then also trying to, think of where I want to go with what they're saying. And that's just one person. And so when I'm thinking of marriage and family counseling, I'm envisioning having to do this with 2 or more people. And I'm just, to me, it seems like mentally trying to juggle it. And I'm just wondering how that looks and how that works for you. And
Sure. I think for somebody entering the field, one of the things I would say is just to kind of relax and give it a little bit of time. That at first it almost does seem like it's more than you can hold in your mind at one time. You're trying to remember what you're supposed to do as a therapist.
yes.
And kind of a model. You kind of that in your role plays and everything.
Yeah.
At the same time, you're trying to track what's going on with the different individuals, and you're trying to think in terms of the system and, maybe what is actually going on between them and with them and all of that. So, but if you can just kind of relax and just kind of go with the process and almost
goes naturally.
Just be a
Okay.
part of that system for a little bit. Just listen, just be part of that system almost. Pretty soon it becomes more natural and you're able to just kind of hold on to it. I used to talk with the chaplains that were learning to do marriage and family therapists about even your gaze. You just take in kind of a wider field of vision.
So you're trying to look at everything. Yeah.
Just kind of tracking.
That makes me feel better. It is a field that I'm interested in, but in just doing the skills, I feel a little apprehension because I'm thinking this is how I'm feeling with just one person. How will I handle multiple, especially if there's, something that's very intense going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's helpful.
It's different. The emotions can very quickly escalate when you have different, variety of people because they're relating to each other. So that's one thing that's a little different.
So when you have a family, and it's a very intense situation, and you can tell that they're kind of feeding off of each other and their emotions. What do you do to kind of bring it back down?
Yeah, well, to bring it back down, what I usually do is I insert some control. So, my chair has wheels on it. And so if I need to, I'll roll right up,
Yeah.
kind of in front of one person that I want to encourage to talk, and I can quiet the other one down.
So you literally almost kind of put yourself in the middle to kind
Almost be
of
the
stop it.
traffic cop.
Yeah, okay. That's helpful though.
I learned from a client a long time ago, that the PrEP, the speaker listener technique, we used to teach that at chaplain-led marriage retreats, and I thought, oh, this is kind of silly. Nobody would ever really do this. And then I had a couple just really, really arguing, intense. He had jumped out of the car on their way to post, to come and see me. And when they came in the room, there was so much hostility they couldn't hardly talk.
Oh,
to each other.
goodness. Yeah.
And all of a sudden, he ripped this little card out of his pocket that he'd gotten at one of those retreats. He said, I have the floor.
Oh, that's
So,
amazing.
I'm going to try that. So I took that card and I would hand it from one to the other, whoever had the floor.
Yeah.
And they were the one that would speak, and I'd quiet the other one down. And
That's actually an awesome idea though.
it just inserted control,
Yeah.
kind of like the rods in a nuclear reactor. It just kept everything kind of contained a little bit.
Yeah.
And with emotionally focused therapy, oftentimes I want them to have more of that emotional expression, and sometimes I actually work to kind of deepen the emotion. And then yet what I'm trying to demonstrate, then you kind of enter into that as a therapist, you're trying to demonstrate kind of how to appropriately handle the emotion and recognize it and validate it and respond to it. So it all kind of depends what I'm doing.
So it's situational,
Mhm.
definitely. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you. Sorry, there's a couple more if you have time.
sure.
Okay. What are the most challenging ethical and multicultural issues in marital and family counseling?
It probably has to do with some of the issues around sexuality.
Yeah.
Particularly, gender, sexuality has just become a whole lot more complex in recent years.
Yeah.
And even recognizing, even identifying really what constitutes a family sometimes really differs.
Yeah.
So kind of how you fit within all of that, where you see your role as in terms of even kind of that distinction of what I personally believe and what my role is as a therapist in helping somebody who's, their family definition of family might be completely different than mine.
Yeah.
That's, I think, probably where the biggest challenges come in right now. Biggest that I've seen anyway.
Are you referring to like a gay or lesbian family that comes in?
Yeah.
And it varying from yours? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, or very open marriages.
Oh,
with,
okay.
Lots of partners and.
Gotcha. So the constructs are not even the same as what?
It used to be very, for at least what the public image was family was pretty cut and dried.
Yeah.
And it wasn't always what things would appear, but we kind of thought it was mom and dad and the kids.
Yeah, and now it's very, I get what you're saying.
It's a lot different in some ways.
Yeah, I could see that definitely being a struggle.
And I know where some marriage and families therapists really struggle is it all right for me as a Christian to help someone maintain a relationship that I believe is sinful? I don't know. My view is my job as a marriage and family therapist, and actually it's my God-given responsibility to try to help these people. And I trust the Holy Spirit to do the conviction, and that's not my job. And then accept and love and pray.
I agree with that. I like that. I think that's perfect. What issues have come up the most, and what have you found to be a good way of assisting these areas? Like some of this kind of discussed.
Yeah, I'd say the two biggest areas. Communication is an issue. Couples do have a hard time usually something underneath the communication. Usually what I find, I believe that it's emotion that oftentimes drives that conflict, and it drives even those barriers of communication.
Yeah.
So what I find over and over again is things like, feelings of not being loved, feelings of not being heard, feelings of failure, and those kinds of emotional needs, they just kind of keep provoking each other in rather than meeting. And that's what causes the conflict. So that's probably the biggest thing that I see. And then the second are just really violations of the marriage in some way. And usually it's through pornography or infidelity. So it's, sometimes it's something else. Sometimes, one couple I've been working with recently, really the violations have more to do with maintaining strong loyalties to his mother at the expense of his wife, and so the violations can take different shapes actually too.
That's an interesting,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I wouldn't have thought of that.
It's kind of biblical if you think about
it. That's
for this
very
reason.
interesting. But I could definitely see both sides of that. That would be difficult for me.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing that. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I feel like some of this we kind of already answered, but maybe you can put a different spin on it. It's what types of issues have you or colleagues worked with? And for this, she's wanting to mainly know as far as difficulties around culture, financial, developmental difference with their kids, I think the extended family conflict you kind of touched on,
Sure.
or even I think communication or rebellious teens. And then if there's one that you'd be willing to share.
Sure. Most of what I do, I would say 60% of my counseling is individual, and then probably another almost 30 to 35% is couples, it's marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So the amount of family counseling I do is relatively small. But I've had a weird niche in family counseling here in Montana. And I think it might be the name of my practice partner. Safe Haven Ranch Counseling and Consultation. I've had 4, and I've got another one that contacted me recently, kind of big ranch families, historic ranch families with grown children that have contacted me for counseling. So I'll have mom and dad who are maybe in their 70s and brothers and sisters that are in their 30s, 40s, or 50s.
Wow.
And we do family counseling.
Oh my gosh. That's very unique though. And I like that. I mean, I think it's great that your marketing and how you named yourself is really working to you. And I feel like your name really does fit you because you're from Montana originally. Sure. And from kind of a farming community, correct?
Mm-hmm. From Lewistown.
From Lewistown. Well, so that's amazing. I would have never even thought of that until you said that.
Yeah, and it wasn't intentional marketing. It just found me, I think, for that reason. And the other thing, I love this part of it. An awful lot of the individual counseling I do are with ranchers or horse people, or I have an awful lot of horse people that I do counseling for. So.
Really? But I can understand that because they feel a connection with you. Like
Sure.
You'll understand them more than somebody that has no idea what they're talking about or what their daily life looks like. So
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
think that's really cool.
Yeah.
I would have never thought
It's
of that.
been fun, and I
Yeah.
really like that part of it.
Yeah, that is awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're making, well, it's kind of turns out it, but you're probably doing some
Great
of it.
experience.
Yes.
And
Yes.
each one is a good relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
How do you, I think you did that one. How do you handle family members that are hesitant to participate? And have you ever had to terminate a session?
Those that are family members that are hesitant to participate, there's just so much you can do. Ultimately, it has to be their decision.
Yeah.
I've had cases where I've worked probably harder than one of the family members, if not both,
Yeah.
or all sometimes. And it just doesn't go very far. What I run into a lot of times is that it seems like the wife is willing to come for counseling, but the husband's really resistant. Once they come, they seem to feel a little bit more at ease that I think they find it's not as bad as what they thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
But I'll work really hard to make them feel comfortable, to make, help them realize I'm not on the other person's side.
That you are biased.
Yeah, yeah. So once they come, it's usually all right. It's getting them to come that first time is difficult.
Have you ever had to separate the couples, like let me see the wife first and then the husband, or the parents and then the children?
I kind of routinely do that almost as a part of the assessment. So what I love to do is I meet with a couple. I'll meet with them together the first time. Then I'll meet with them both individually at a time, and then I'll bring them back together again.
Okay.
So then usually most of the time it's meeting with them together. I have had some where it's been, we'll do the individual a few more times. I set up clear ground rules anytime I go from couples to individual, that I want to make sure that they understand what those ground rules are, and that's that I'm not going to keep any secrets.
Yeah.
That's really the big one, that I'm not intentionally going to share from the individual into the couples, but I don't want to try to remember, can I talk about this, or what can't I talk about?
Yes. Yes.
And if I go to more of an individual model, even though I have then I'd have them sign an informed consent again.
Gotcha. So. One more question I just thought about, and this kind of relates to, I know during residency they talked about during couples therapy that by the end of the first session, they're supposed to agree to not be intimate. Is there anything in Montana that stipulates that, or is there anything that is specific to marriage and counseling along that line?
I must not have been in that session at residency. It's in the context of the couple not being intimate with each other.
I believe so. From my understanding, I think it was Dr. Burkhart had mentioned in Colorado, when their couples go in for counseling, by the end of the first session, if they're to maintain the counseling, they have to agree by the end of that session to abstain from intercourse in order to, I guess, reestablish the relationship.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
Oh, okay. So maybe
I know with sex addicts, a lot of models of sex addiction counseling will have, usually at least 90 days of sobriety, complete sobriety, kind of to rewire the brain. But I've never heard of any place that had a requirement for couples to abstain from intimacy. In fact, actually, sometimes, I will even use, I don't do a lot of sex counseling, but I do sometimes use an approach that encourages them to be intimate, kind of in a gradual, step-by-step way. So, yeah.
No, that's helpful.
So I kind of want my couples to be intimate in a healthy way.
You do have to have that level of intimacy because it does affect your relationship. So I thought that was interesting too. I could see why you might need to abstain depending on what's going on, because it can cloud thoughts, but intimacy is definitely a huge part of the relationship. So I think that's all of my questions. However, is there anything that I didn't ask that you feel like you could benefit from your experience?
I think that's pretty good. One thing I guess I would say about marriage and family therapists, it's kind of a misconception. What marriage and family therapists do is marriage and family therapy. Actually, marriage and family therapists do a lot of individual therapy, work within that framework, But I think what kind of differentiates a marriage and family therapist is even when they're doing individual, they tend to be thinking from a systems perspective and how that individual fits within their system. Most of what I do with an individual looks no different. My PhD it's in the professional counseling track. So my master's is actually what's in the marriage and family track. But so most of what I do with an individual as a marriage and family therapist is no different than what I would do as an LPC. Except that I'm kind of thinking just by nature of my training and my background, from probably a systems perspective. So I'm wondering how the family system is either maintaining this or, you know, impacting what's going on and how the county system is just a part of it all.
I think that's definitely beneficial, I think, so.
Yeah, I was kind of in with attachment theory even really.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking this time.
Yeah, no, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah, so wish the best to you on your assignment and course.
Thank you. Thank you. Stop this.